Hi there, this is a tutorial for double crochet rib. So that's UK double crochet, US single crochet. I've used this technique on my Lowrider jumper and quite a few of the patterns in my book. So I thought I'd do a little tutorial to show you how I work it. So I'm going to show you on a cuff. So this is the end of a sleeve. So I'm going to be working some cuff rib in this tutorial. It's exactly the same whether you're working it on a hem or whether you're working it around a neckband. Sometimes with neckbands you'll be working into slip stitches that you've worked around prior to working the rib, but it's exactly the same method. So what I always say is to finish on a right side row. So if you've added a few extra rows and finished on a wrong side row, join with your slip stitch at the end of your row like I've just done and turn your work so that the right side is facing. Now I'm demonstrating on a Lowrider jumper sleeve, so we have got decreases. We've got some treble two togethers around this final row, but it's the same method whether you've got decreases there or not. Okay, so the way double crochet rib works is you're working vertical rows up and down all the way around your cuff or the end of your sleeve to form the cuff, and then you're going to slip stitch with a seam at the end to join it together. So what you need to do is to decide how many stitches, or look at the pattern to see how many stitches you want for your cuff rib. Sometimes you can, if you want to make the cuff steeper or shallower, you can change that number, and that's quite easy to do. So for this one, we're going to be working 6 stitches, 6 stitches up, 6 down, 6 up, etc. So you always need to chain one more than the amount of stitches that you want. So we're going to chain 7. 7. So we've chained 7, and our first row of double crochets are going to be worked in this direction. So I'm going to turn you round so that I'm crocheting horizontally and not vertically. And you're going to work 1 double crochet into the second chain from the hook. So that's the first chain and this is the second chain. So we're going to work a double crochet into there. And I tend to go under both parts of the chain. So I've got 2 bars on the top of my hook and 1 on the bottom. So you've gone into the second, you've double crocheted into the second chain from the hook, and now it will say double crochet into the next 5 chain because you want 6 in total. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can see I've got my 2 bars on the top there, and I've got 1 on the bottom, so that's how I'm working into my chains. 5 and 6. So what I would do at this point is just to check that you've got 6 sets of V's going along the top, because that will tell you whether you've got 6 stitches or not. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 V's along the top there, so that's telling you that you've got your 6 stitches. Now what you need to do is you need to anchor this row to the end of your sleeve. So I'm going to turn you back this way, and the way I do this is to slip stitch into the back loop only of the main granny stitch groups around the sleeve. So this is the first stitch, because this one here has got the row coming out of it. So this is your first stitch. So you're going to go into the back loop, yarn over and pull through the loop on your hook. So that's 1, and we're going to do it twice. We're going to slip stitch twice into the back loops only of the stitches of the main sleeve, and that's 2. So now you've just anchored your first row to your main sleeve by slip stitching across the back loop of 2 of the stitches. And now you need to work back along your row in the opposite direction. So you're going to need to turn your work over, and I'm going to turn you back horizontally again, and you're going to work double crochets across in the back loop only of each of these next 6 stitches, but you want to make sure you don't accidentally work into these slip stitches, otherwise you will end up gaining stitches and it will look uneven. So in order to work out which ones to work into, you can count back from the start. So you can see the V's on the top here. You can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I know that this one is the first one to work into, because sometimes the slip stitches can look like stitches. So you're going to get into the back loop only, yarn over, pull through, and yarn over and pull through 2 for your first double crochet. into the second stitch, into the back loop only, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. So that's your second double crochet. Do the same into the third, the fourth, the fifth. It's harder at the start because you don't really have much of a sort of rib to hold on to, and into the last one, which is your sixth. So now you've worked row 1 and row 2. Okay, so you're going to turn your work over again, and you're going to do similar to row 1, but this time you're going to chain 1, and that's just to get the height for your row, but you're going to ignore that chain 1, and you're going to work straight into the back loop only of the first stitch, and that counts as 1, back loop only of the next stitch, 2, back loop only of the third stitch, 3, fourth stitch, 4, fifth stitch, 5, and the last stitch, number 6, sometimes can be tricky to get into, and that's row 3 complete. So you can see that it's starting to form those ridged rows. You now need to anchor this row to the rib, to the end of the sleeve, sorry. So you're going to locate the next 2 stitches, and that sometimes is quite tricky because that one looks empty, but you have actually used that as an anchor. So not this one, the next free open stitch on the end of your sleeve, go into the back loop only and slip stitch to it, and go into the back loop only of the next one and slip stitch to it. So you've basically just anchored your next row across the next 2 stitches. So now you're going to flip your work over, ready to start row 4. The yarn is kind of at the moment going around the back, don't worry about that. Ignore the 2 slip stitches, and you're going to work into the next 6 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are the 2 slip stitches there. So we're going to go back loop only, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, and you're now going to turn your work over to come back along the next row, and you're going to chain 1. So you always have to chain 1 when you're at this end, and ignore that chain, work into the first stitch, back loop only, double crochet, number 3, number 4, number 5, and number 6. I do find I have to count these quite often, otherwise I get a bit lost. So now we're anchoring again, and you can see that chain, or that stitch, sorry, has been used by anchoring the previous set of rows. So you're going to go into the back loop only of the next stitch and slip stitch, and then slip stitch back loop only into the next stitch, and we've anchored there. It does look quite gappy here, but that will close up. Okay, so flip your work over. Your yarn is going around the back of your slip stitches, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I know that that's my first stitch. I'm not accidentally working into my slip stitches. And work all the way to the end of your row, always making sure that you've got those 6 stitches. Okay, so flip you over, and you can see the rib starting to form. So although those gaps look quite big at the moment, like I said, they will close up and your rib will look more like that. So I'm going to finish the row and show you how to seam it together at the end. Okay, so we're almost at the end of our cuff rib, and we've only got 2 stitches of the main sleeve remaining in order to anchor our last, or second to last row of rib. So I'm just going to go ahead and slip stitch across those last 2 stitches. If you do find that you have only 1 stitch remaining, or even 3 stitches remaining, just slip stitch across them. Work with what you've got. It's not going to make a huge amount of difference. We're now going to turn our work, ready to work our last 6 double crochet stitches for our last row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're now wanting to slip stitch these these ends of these rows together. Okay, so in an ideal world, you'd turn your whole jumper inside out and slip stitch them together. I'm just going to cheat and sort of half turn them inside out because I like to make life hard. So we've got a bit of bulk to deal with because I'm doing it this way. It is easier if you turn the whole sleeve inside out. So because I'm going to be slip stitching along here, I really want that loop to be on this side. So I'm just going to put my hook into the first loop or the first chain, and I'm just going to take the loop that was on my hook and pull it through so that my loop is now on this side. You need to make sure that you are matching up your chains with your stitches evenly. So we've just joined the first chain with the first stitch. So now we're going to join the second one. So go under the second chain and go under the second set of V's on the other side, yarn over, pull through both, pull up a little bit to give yourself some slack and pull through. Okay, now you're going to go under the next chain and under the next set of V's on the other side. So that's the third chain and the third stitch, and you're going to pull through both, pull up a little bit to give yourself some slack and pull through. We don't want to make these slip stitches too tight because we don't want this seam to pinch together. So go into the fourth chain and the fourth, where are you? There we go. The fourth stitch, pull through, pull up a little bit, oops, and pull through the loop on your hook. Go into the fifth chain and the fifth stitch, yarn over, pull through both, pull up a little bit and pull through, and then finally into the sixth chain and the sixth stitch on the other side, which can sometimes be a bit squished, that last stitch, and yarn over, pull through them both, pull up, pull through. I've already fastened off my yarn because I've had a few goes at this, and just pull through the loop on your hook to secure. Okay, make sure that's not too pinched, so you haven't done your slip stitches too tight. Turned to the right side and you can barely see the join. So you've got a nice neat cuff rib going on there. Let's pretend we've woven our ends in, and I'm obviously using a dummy sleeve for this tutorial, so let's see if I can get it on. Zoom you out, there we go. Got a nice get away, naughty end. Nice cuff rib, which looks really neat. Okay, so as I said, I've done this as if it's the Lowrider jumper, so we've got decreases here, but some of my jumpers are just tapered straight down, and you just work into the last row of granny stitch without any decreases. So that's how you work the double crochet rib.